Burgess and Bolton's weekly wrap-up. Hello, Ben.
Hello, Jeremy. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you too. You well?
Yeah, I'm really well. Really good. Don't know why. Just feeling the joys of spring.
Good stuff. Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of Burgess and Bolton's weekly wrap-up, where we look at everything to do with the London market. This week, we're going to be looking at claims and claims excellence, and kind of just building on some of the themes that were covered in John Muir's interview last week. But before we get going, Ben, you'll be delighted by this because I put together a little quiz just to see if you can work out what the tenuous theme is for this week's show. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to play you 3 clips of music. See if you can work out who the artist is and who the song is, and then we'll see if we can work out what the theme is that links them together. So turn your mic off, and I will play the clip. Here we go.
Take me down, 6 underground. I left alone. Sing a song. If the sun begins to shine.
What do you reckon? Any clues?
No idea. I was trying to. They were quite short.
Yeah, they're quite short. Do you want to hear them again? It's only 20 seconds.
Yeah, go on, do them again. I don't think I'll get them, but
Right. Anybody in the chat? No. So we're looking for three song titles and the artist, and then we'll get the theme.
I'm trying to turn my Shazam on quickly to cheat.
Yeah. Well, you can if you want. Right. Here you go.
Take me down, 6 underground. I left alone.
Sorry. Who are they? Who aren't they?
So I'll give you the first one. So the first one was Six Underground by the Sneaker Pimps from their debut album Becoming X, released in 1996. The second one was The Number of the Beast by Iron Maiden.
I did have a If you give me another couple of minutes, I might have got that it was Iron Maiden.
Yeah, from the 1982 release of the album of the same name. And the last one was 6 Was 9 by Jimi Hendrix. No.
Right.
1967 from his second album.
I thought they were all like I thought they were all 90s.
No.
Right.
No.
They're not very easy though, are they? But I know your theme. Your theme is
6.
Yes.
So 6 Underground, Number of the Beast, 666, and 6.
Nice.
By Jimi Hendrix. So yeah, the tenuous link between those for 6 is that a few weeks ago we were talking about the European Super League, 6 English clubs that we were discussing there, and actually we assessed it, or rather you did, through the lens of groupthink. And since we've done that, I've had a couple of conversations where people have had groupthink workshops. And I can only imagine that this whole Zoom environment is kind of questioning how organizations are making decisions, and whether and this was something that we talked about right at the start of lockdown, actually, whether the decisions that were being made over Zoom were actually good decisions or not, because of the medium. So that's quite
interesting. It must be very hard. I think, hard to contextualize as well what we're all deciding on at the moment. I think I would say hard to assess, empathize with people. That's what we do all the time, is when we're with people and you can see them in body language, but it's much harder in this environment. So yeah.
Definitely. So the other 6 was the sequel 6. So there's been a lot of press over the last couple of weeks about this sequel 6. 6 companies come together to talk about technology and standards and data in the London market. Kurt Madden, he was on I think there was a bit of a promotional webinar this week by Instech London. Kurt Madden was on there describing the sequel 6 as putting a speedboat in the water to get to the next island, whereas he described Blueprint 2 as the ocean liner to get you around the world. So I'm not entirely sure how those two kind of concepts come together, unless it's like something off James Bond and the ocean liner kind of gobbles up the small boat. I don't know, but we'll see how
that's fighting talk, isn't it?
It's good. It's good. I think it's good. I think they were. I mean, basically, they were talking about the pace of change, and they needed to do something in order to push through this stuff. I think my problem with it is the word standards, and when they were talking on their webinar, they were talking about standards if they were industry standards, but they're not. They're standards within the SQL suite of software that they've got. So they're not industry standards, they're just standards between the different things. But whether that plays into the Blueprint 2 core data record, who knows? Only time will tell, but that's a whole different ball game. So,
I mean, it has a track record. I think it was a 5 before, but that did speed things up. I think it sets, in a way, it's, I've talked about competition quite a lot, and that's my thing. In a way, it's saying competition coming together to make the point, as Kurt says, that we're going to get on with it. And I do believe that companies are going to get on with it anyway. And I mean companies, not Lloyd syndicates. I mean companies that are global, saying we'll just get on with a lot of this stuff. Yeah. So Lloyd's has to sort of catch up with it. So it is the impetus to do something, and to that it's going to happen anyway, because competitive forces, competitors are saying we're not going to hang around.
Yeah.
And the new, it's always technology hand in hand with the business as well, isn't it? So
yeah. And the things that we're interested in, kind of the people, the culture, the momentum around change and change delivery, it's really important. So the final 6 on the list, and this is what we're going to come to today, is the sort of your announcement, I suppose, of the 6 insurers that have achieved the outstanding claims service quality mark. And we're going to talk about that a bit
By
later.
far the most important one.
Yeah, by far. But let's
far.
move things on to the news. So obviously the big news that all our regular readers will notice is that I've lost my shirt. So I'm wearing this particularly bad, ill-fitting number. Not that the other one was any good, but yeah, it's a bit warm. It's made of pure polyester, so it cost me £1. There we are.
Yeah. I'm glad I'm not in the room with it. Must be a lot of static electricity going on there.
Yeah, maybe that's why I keep getting pinged by everything.
Yeah.
Wrong clothes. So this is my first bit of news. Muddy Waters Capital. This was an open letter. You might not be able to see it, to Daniel Schreiber of Lemonade, which goes on to say Muddy Waters Capital, in short, Lemonade is to short Lemonade because it's clear that Lemonade does not give a fuck about securing its customers' sensitive personal information. So this is quite an interesting story. It's only just broken, so I don't know that much about it. But Muddy Waters Research, American privately owned investment firm, and it conducts research, I think, on public companies. And I think it has exposed some quite interesting, not scandals, but flaws, perhaps. And in this case, they're basically saying that there's publicly open data of their customers that Google, Bing, and Wayback Machine have picked up and accessed during their site. So there must be something in it. Otherwise, they wouldn't have written an open letter and published it. And they have got a track record, I think, of winning some cases. And there is precedent in insurance as well, Ben, isn't there?
Yeah, I think there was the one from not even a couple of years ago for Argo was as they would say, hounded by an active investor who, disclosed the management for wasting money, basically private jet flights and the like. And in the end, the chief exec went and they restructured the management. So these active investors, as you say, they do their research, they know what they're talking about, and they're really very powerful because they get listened to. They are also doing things which are quite different each time. So they're focusing on specific aspects of the business rather than the generalities of investment. They're saying in the case of Argo, it was about the idea that they brought attention to the fact that management was on Learjets while the typical customer of Argo was a small business, that made, small profits each year, to survive. So they create these kind of pictures of, or these narratives around issues. And it's active investors, they're called. And I guess in a modern world, it's very easy to get the story out. It's even got to us, look, so that shows how easy it is, I guess. And, this stuff sticks, and it's, we're going to go on to another story in a minute, but it basically is using a story like this to say, is this a well-run company or not? And there must be other things that they are thinking about the company as to whether it's, a worthwhile investment or not. I don't know their whole game, but it clearly suits their purposes to say it's not a well-run company, particularly on the last point. Is the management literally just not there at the tiller or whatever the phrase is?
At the helm.
At the helm.
Yes, we shall see how that develops. Right, I have another piece. This is just quite an interesting bit of tech. As you know, I'm into tech. This AI, it's kind of picking up on the AI news that you had last week, Ben, that tip around Cortana that I've been using. It works pretty well. But this story was about AI music, and it's related to mainly medical use of music for dementia patients. So what they found is that for dementia patients, when they're listening to music that relaxes them, it takes down their blood pressure and helps their heart rate and things like that. And what the AI does is kind of monitor those various metrics and then delivers a playlist that will help them kind of keep calm. And I just thought that was a really kind of cool, innovative use of tech, and nice outcome. So yeah,
it is good.
Right, over to you, Ben. You've got the big story. This is great.
Yeah, so we've all probably been reading about the Colonial Pipeline story, and I think it would be remiss of us not to comment on this because of its relevance to the insurance industry. So just to recap, it's a business that is a pipeline business. It transports gasoline, jet fuel, basically up the east coast of America, about 2.5 million barrels a day, I think, which is 45% of the east coast supplies. So, and this business was shut down. Now, this is not clear. So, at the moment, there is very little information really from the company. It's a private company; it doesn't have to disclose it, but it has shut down. The one thing we do know, it shut down its pipeline, which caused huge ramifications for the supply of to transport and so on in the US and elsewhere. So it was one of these knock-on things. It impacts not just the supply but also the pricing of the commodity. So that was also hitting markets. So this is a big deal, right? When you look at this and say, what are the losses potentially from these kind of cyber attacks? Now we know that all of these hackers have been after utilities and energy supplies for a long time because they are high profile, they are vulnerable, and they are targets. And the thing I understand about hackers, and this is a rather funny world that we live in which basically the hackers say, we are here providing a public service, which is to find the vulnerabilities in your system. Now, the question is, do they get paid for that? Well, yes, they do. And they have actually, just according to the news, been paid $5 million as a ransom, which will have been negotiated possibly through an insurance company, we don't know, or a risk, a kind of security risk company, consultants.
Yeah.
And it may have been based on a policy, or there's another rumor going around it was paid in Bitcoin. Anyway, it doesn't really matter, but $5 million has been paid. So in effect, the transaction has been, we found your vulnerability. We knew it was there. It shut everything down. We asked for a payment. Initially, you didn't give us a high enough payment. Then you gave us $5 million. We released your data and we didn't dump it onto the internet. So basically, it is a kind of odd business transaction, but it is a business transaction. The question is it good or bad? Most people will probably say, well, it's terrible, right? But at the end of the day, look at the outcome. The outcome is that probably every pipeline company and every insurer now will be looking at just how they set their arrangements up internally. And interestingly, just to credit WTW here, they got this press release out about it. And what they say is that, I'll just quote them, almost half of all cyber incidents start with the cyber culture of an organization. Incidents are quite frequently a people problem. So it's a little bit like the active investor saying, we found a security flaw in your website or your digital site, and that goes straight back to management. Has management taken the eye off the ball? Have you not bothered about this? And I think the same thing almost is happening here, so you could see this as a, in a sense, as a positive. I think, though, that it gets mixed up, obviously, with criminality, and it also gets mixed up with geopolitics, because there was a story, there was one which people may remember from about a year and a half ago, the SolarWinds attack, which was a tech platform that supplied about 18,000 organizations, includes some of the biggest names, so the Oracles and the Microsoft, all used this software. And on an update, the hackers got in and put malware into it. So this malware went out to all these organizations. So it became a systemic attack, basically, on all the platforms that we know there was rumours that they got in to be able to change the Microsoft base code, stuff like that, really scary kind of stuff. So, and that I think they imply, and I'd hate to have any kickback for our show on this, but they imply it was maybe Russian backed, but that is only alleged. So, it obviously does get into the rather murky waters of geopolitics and so on. But it's now, when we take it right back to the insurance industry, now this is going to be, rates will go up. Businesses will start to look more carefully at what they're writing. They'll start to look at the caps and so on and so forth. So there'll be less it'll cost more to get less, I think, on cyber policies going forward.
Yeah.
And not surprisingly, because my God, I think WTW says the average breach is $4 million, just at the outset. So it's expensive stuff as soon as you get hit.
Yeah, and it just demonstrates, I suppose, the not just the disruption, but how they're going after kind of not just small entities, but they're going after the big ones as well. So, and you can quite quickly see a domino effect, as you've just described there. And it's quite then difficult from an insurer's point of view to go, well, what is the size of the risk? Because if it does become systemic, if they take out a power station or something like that, that shuts down a lot of electrical, how big is the claim?
Well, I've got a solution to all of this.
Yeah.
Which is, you just miss out the middleman, and you basically the underwriters should just go and ask the hackers which organizations they should insure.
Yeah. That's it. You're done. And then you go to the other people going, I think you might have a vulnerability in your systems. Let me help you.
Yeah.
Put it right. Yeah, it's a win-win.
That's not a bad business.
Not bad. Yeah, we'll talk about that after. Comments in the chat, please, on that business plan. So that's good. Right. Moving on to our main feature. So as I said at the top of the show, we're talking about delivering outstanding claims service. And this is off the back of last week's interview with John Muir, where he was talking about modernization in the London market and transformation, and then particularly around the claims function. I'm just going to play a 2-minute clip just to remind about what he said about the importance of claims as a competitive advantage. And then we'll start talking about both London market claims coming up in October and your outstanding claims service, Mark, as well. So let me just play the clip as a reminder for everyone. Here we go. So we thought we'd build on those kind of themes that John outlined there around claims being an area of competitive advantage, and it's about delivering a service, not just writing a check. And from my point of view, working at the insurance network, we run London Market Claims, particularly where we try and bring all stakeholders together to improve claims performance across the market. It's about raising standards and performance for everyone, for the whole industry. And I think you'd agree with me, Ben, that that's something you're trying to do as well. And I think it'd be interesting just to talk about the 6 insurers. Well, to talk about the Outstanding Claim Service Quality Mark, what it is, and then what makes those insurers kind of on the list.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, do you want to give us a bit of background then, Ben, on the?
Yeah, sure. So we, as people will know, we run studies, benchmarking, independent studies. John mentioned in his in that clip that Willis does a survey as well, and so does Aon, so does Marsh. So there is quite a lot of this sort of work. Our study is right across the market, and we have worked quite closely actually with quite a few of the brokers. So nowadays, basically, people use all sorts of a lot of different sources. I think ours is probably about one of the few independent sources. But anyway, John's point is that claims gives you competitive advantage, and the other point that if you do well in claims, it both builds your reputation and it's commercially advantageous because it gets passed on. We can prove that in our data. So that was when we started the study back in 2007, I think it was. That was almost the first thing that jumped off the page, was that good service really got passed on to the client or to the producing broker in the market, so that it was good news for the insurer. And I have to say, I think the market was slow to cotton on to that sort of thing, as they often are, because I tend to think they think of process and procedural stuff first in a regulated environment than what is the advantage of great service. So John's point about it being a service is really, really crucial. So actually, I have to credit John as well, and Miles Banks and others who I presented this idea of a claim service quality mark that we do a few years ago at LIBA, and to the claims group there, and they said, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. So we did kind of pass it through, particularly the broking community. Now, we never really, we felt we would see how this worked out, because I think forcing the insurance industry is something that we don't do. Maybe Lloyd's does that occasionally, but we don't and can't do that. So you want to get engagement and adoption. So we've basically let it develop. And I think from now on, I think the timing and the changes that we've had post-pandemic now will make this more important. But anyway, so the point of this is that it's an independent quality mark. So it's an endorsement, a third-party endorsement, if you like, of good quality service based on the evidence. So it helps those who are the good guys, I suppose, at any given time, to show off about it and to tell the clients and the brokers why they're good. That's the really important thing about it.
Yeah. So go on, who are the good guys in 21, Ben?
Right. So the winners this year, or the achievers, and are Aegis, Liberty, Tokio Marine Kiln, TMK, Chubb, Chaucer, and Beazley. So we had 6, which was our 6th theme earlier on.
Yep.
We've had between 6 and 8. It's an absolute measure. You know, arguably we could have everybody achieving it, but that's never the case, as John said. There are and there are good reasons. Sometimes businesses are making change. Businesses have had issues, but sometimes it is just that they're not as good at service as others. So the idea is that this does draw attention to competition. So yeah. Those are the 6 this year who've achieved the mark, and you'll see that on their websites and various things.
And what have they actually done to make the grade, as it were? I suppose what is it?
So the metric that we use, the measures are based on what many people will know as a net promoter score. So there is basically a score of 1 to 10 as to whether claims specialists, claims brokers would highly recommend them for their service. That's the measure we've been using for several years. So that's the first kind of core measure, and that's both an absolute measure that we apply, and then we apply a sort of a weighting, if you like, or a booster if you do well on some of the other service measures that we look at, and we've focused on customer, i.e. end policyholder impact. So communication, speed, and commerciality are the
Right.
three that boost you up. So you could get it just on its own as having an NPS, but if you're a bit marginal, say, or you're not, if you're doing well on those three, it'll be better. So it kind of pushes it away from things like technical expertise and knowledge, which we know are important, but they're more like hygiene factors.
Right. So you've been running this for 10 years now. So do you get a sense of kind of where the service is going, or kind of what's the relevance for the industry going forward?
Right. So the first thing I'd say is this point here on this chart is that, achieving positive experiences. I mean, you can sort of be cliched about, we want to raise the bar, which I think, you and I and others like us do. We do feel, I think, quite passionate about the industry, and it frustrates us when we don't see good performance. So that is important. But also, I looked at this at the time and said, right, if this is about customer delivery, which in the end it should be, I want to know as a customer that if I choose any of these that Grace Church has given a mark to, that I'm going to get a good experience, good service. And so that's what you get. It's not overclaiming. It's not 99%, as some people do. It's just saying that, you're very highly likely to get a good experience. And if you don't, ask the reason why. So that's the start point. I think in terms of the last 10 years, I'd say quite a lot has changed. I mean, when we first started, I think service was generally quite poor. I'm sure if John was here, he would probably agree with that. The reason brokers started surveys themselves was they were also frustrated with service. So I think service was poor, and it was poor for a number of reasons. I think there wasn't, I don't think leadership was always supportive. It was very much the back office. And I think that often many of the teams I met at the time, they didn't see it. They weren't confident enough really to go into the underwriters or the management and say, look, we really need to build service up. So I think the first thing that changed through the period was leadership changed. I think people came into those jobs who were determined to put claims onto the map, and they said that this is our promise, this is what we stand for, and therefore we can do something with it. And that was both so that they, people don't do these things just entirely for their companies. I think they were passionate people who believed, and they wanted to do something good in their jobs, right, and look good and be successful. So that was great. That was competition. So the things really that I think have changed, I'd say that there's two that I would draw attention to. I think culture in claims has changed quite a lot. I don't know that it's changed overall as much as you might think in the insurance industry generally. I think there still needs to be more change in the boardroom, if you like, at the senior level. But I think within claims teams, I think there is more of a genuine kind of authentic, we really are here for the customer. So that the people in those teams are passionate, if you like, are more passionate about service in the good teams. That's for sure. So they want to do the right thing. And they want to pay claims. That's what they see as them. That's what they'll say. We're here to pay claims, as long as they're not fraudulent, we're here to pay them. So
yeah,
that's a big change. And it used to be the phrase that, we'll only pay fair claims, which was I always thought was basically saying we're going to wriggle out of everything we can. So I always look at the wording of that type of statement. So that has changed, and you can see that's changed. The other one is teamwork, I think I'd say. When I used to work with teams in the early days, they were very distressed by the data we showed. And I couldn't for a while work out why they were so distressed, because I thought, just fix it, get on with it. But I realized after a while that whenever we showed some bad news or poor service, that they were individually quite threatened. So people felt, oh God, that's going to turn on me. It's going to be my fault. Someone's going to blame me. Have I got the worst score, or has my colleague got the worst score? So they therefore pushed back very hard and said, we don't want any measurement. It's terrible. So there was a lot of denial and tears we had in some meetings, and it was quite tough in the early days. And what changed that, I think, was teams who did teamwork. They got together, they started to have each other's back. They started to realize that actually when we talked about the issues and how we deliver service, that it was A, fun, B, they would go up our table, because they got a bit of ethos, as Jonathan Clark calls it. And they started to build cultures there that were supportive, that said claims isn't always perfect, but we are here for the customer. And I think they had a more of a purpose about them. So that's changed. Things that possibly have had less, so people are key ultimately. Technologies had a bit of impact. ECF came in, obviously. I think that's helped. It helped at the margins. It helped to create audit trails. It helped with, but it's not gone far enough, as John, I think, said in his talk too, and the things need to change there. We haven't seen much yet in the way of technology out front that helps people to self-serve and things. And I think we will see that. But for London, it is still about the service, the underpinning of the technical underpinning of that, and the ability to sort things, to create solutions for clients. So I think it's a business that's heavily reliant on people, and they've got a lot better. And now a couple of other things that are changing going forward are really about the kind of value that they can add. So I think the footprint of claims is getting bigger. It used to be just do we adjust the claim, pay the claim, and claims people typically wouldn't be involved pre-inception. I think they're getting more involved pre-inception, becoming almost like a potential for almost consultancy, risk mitigation, thinking ahead, rather than just being as you say, a company that signs a check if the small print agrees.
Yeah, indeed. And that comes full circle back to what John was saying about it, being a service, not just an accounting and settlement function.
I think it is. I think it is. And it's also very important now to the reputation of these businesses. I think they're very vulnerable on claims service. So, okay, Lemonade gets pinged for its data, privacy, but actually I think the more fundamental things are now going to be, and to an extent we've seen this with Hiscox through BI, are going to be about where is your reputation staked. And I think increasingly, if we have a more customer-centric world, customer-focused world, which we will, because Willis, Aon will do it, Marsh is doing, they're all massively more heavily focused on delivering service to the customer because they're competing. And they can only in the end compete on service, really, because rates are similar. So that will fall, you cannot therefore opt out of this. Because as John says, not only will you lose your reputation, but you'll actually directly be penalized by the brokers for that. So it is imperative, I think, that service is high up the agenda now for these big businesses.
Good, excellent. That's an excellent. And how do you release that? Is it a report, or
well, it's part of the report, so that all the players will get their own pack, so they put it out on social media and they talk about it. And they're interestingly, I think more and more are saying putting it into pitch decks and using it. The important thing here is not just to say we got a badge. I think the important thing is to say the badge is representative of something reasonably empirical, which it is, but also it's independent. And thirdly, it's why we got it. And I think it's hard often for people to tell that story without the evidence. I think they've got to say, well, we're top on speed because we've just put a new workflow system, and that increasingly, I think that performance expectation is coming through in the whole of the insurance industry. I was talking to a law firm this morning. They're saying we're getting asked about our data and where we place that and how we do it. And, you know, there is much more accountability now, I think, going forward over the actual performance of the businesses we work with, which is a really good thing for good businesses. It's great.
Definitely. And we'll try and get some of those 6 to come along to London Market Claims and just talk about their story.
Absolutely, yeah, and they'll be pleased to.
Because, like you say, Ben, it's not limited to 6. Ideally, we'd have everyone on there.
I mean, and I'm not saying there aren't more that do well. I mean, these are the ones we've worked with, and they've achieved it on the basis of that, the standards that we set. But it is, John's point is very well made about the huge, kind of dispersion of performance, and in that there is very good performance by quite a few players, but there is also let's call it very adequate to weak performance by many. And it's often those players that don't engage with a lot of these things. And I don't say that that's true of all of them, because there's some who have a bit of a struggle and are trying to get better and improve, but it'll take them a little while for various reasons. But there are others who just don't want to know, they think they'll carry on. And that, as you say, needs to change.
Yep. Good. Right, let's move things on. So let's wrap things up. Anything planned for the weekend, Ben?
I'm going down to Eastbourne.
Oh, excellent.
I'm taking my old parents. Well, I think they're taking me out actually for lunch on Monday, because I'm going when the pub's open and the restaurant's open.
Oh, excellent. Good news. I'm going to spend most of the weekend trying to find my shirt.
Yeah,
because that's annoyed me. I don't know where it is.
Don't go out in that, I would suggest.
No, I bought this for a holiday. It was hilarious, and I didn't tell my wife. And then I just put it on just with my swimming trunks, and I looked really bad, like something off Sexy Beast. Yeah. If you remember that film. Yeah, really bad. She was horrified.
Yeah, I probably would use that just for indoors.
Yeah, you're right. It does create a lot of static, I've noticed. Very good. Right. Next week we've got interview, haven't we, with Claire Knight?
We've got Claire Knight on, yes. Ex of the LMA.
Yeah.
Now doing other things. And she's got, lots of views on claims, future at Lloyd's, delegated.
Oh, yeah, delegated authority. We should do something on that as well.
Yeah, we haven't done much on delegated.
Yeah, we'll have a look at that. Good, excellent. Right, thanks for tuning in, everybody. See you next week.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Have a good weekend. Bye.